Thank you for staying with us now. President Bola Tinubu has ordered a ban on importation of foreign goods, especially those that can be produced locally in Nigeria. President Tinubu also placed the caveat on export rates coming into the country to execute jobs which local contractors and artisans can undertake unless there is convincing justification for it, including express permission from the Bureau of Public Enterprises. Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mr. Mohammed Idris, made the disclosure shortly thereafter the Federal Executive Council meeting chaired by the President at the Council chambers of the Presidential Villa on Monday. According to Mr. Idris, President Tinubu, in a landmark decision which is aimed at strengthening Nigeria's domestic economy and promoting local content, approved the sweeping new policy framework tagged the Renewed Hope Nigeria First policy. He described the policy as a bold shift in the country's economic approach. Let's talk to Mr. Joseph Nwakwue. He's a partner, Zero Advisory and Consulting, to look critically at this and how it affects Nigeria's economy. Thank you so much, Mr. Nwakwue. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you, and good afternoon.
Yes, I think let's start our conversation with what basically you think or how this comes to you first about this Nigeria First policy of government.
Well, I think it's, if you ask me, it's long overdue. However, the details are still not out there, so I couldn't say specifically what it really means. There are quite a few issues that they haven't given out. So I'm hoping that in the weeks ahead, a lot more clarification and details of the specifics of this policy will be made public. But overall, I think it's, it's a good thing. It's something we should have done a long time ago. And a friend of mine told me that he's looking forward to the day that all official vehicle of public office holders will be Nigerian-made vehicles. I mean, that will have a huge impact. So we are with the details. I think that's where the detail. That's probably where the meat is.
Now, for me, my question to you, because you operate in the oil and gas industry, let's look at our in-country capacity for production. If today we decide to ban importation of petroleum products, what do you think would happen?
Okay, so a ban on petroleum products, it will have implications for the consuming public. Realize that today, from the official numbers I've seen, we are not producing sufficient enough quantities for our need. As at March, I think the numbers I saw, Dangote refineries, the domestic production is about 45% of total requirement, daily requirement. So what that will mean then is if you ban imports, how are you going to fill the gap? The difference is still there. 55% of your requirement needs to be sourced somehow. But I would say for a fact that it will incentivize those who have refinery projects at various stages to accelerate the development of those refineries so that that gap can be filled. But I would say that as a policy, it's a great initiative, but it needs to be properly designed and implemented, and all the impacts will need to be properly looked at and measures put in place to address them.
All right.
I don't know if that.
Yeah, it does. It does. Give me a moment. We have some live pictures again from Anambra, where the president is on a visit to Anambra State to commission some legacy projects of Governor Chukwuma Soludo. We'll be bringing you those live pictures. But Business Nigeria continues on all other platforms. All right. So, like we're saying, yeah, I think yes, I agree with you with your response, but I'm just being specific because my worry is about pricing. What happens to pricing? Because when a product is not readily available, the issue of pricing, the issue of hiking prices might come in. And that is where I'm looking. So now, what is the way out? Are we going to have this in phases? Are we going to, the NNPC refineries, we are yet to know the level of production capacity at the moment if they are augmenting whatever comes from Dangote refinery. So putting this together, what do you make of it, Mr. Nwakwue?
Like I said, as at March, data from the NMDPRA shows that we are meeting about 45–46% of our national requirement domestically. That's what is being produced. And I imagine that includes Dangote and the NNPC refineries. And that's for PMS, by the way. So what that will mean, if we decide to ban imports, if that is part of the Nigerian first policy, and that's why I say that that policy has to be very well designed, then you have to have countermeasures to ensure that that shortfall is fulfilled. Without it, because if you don't do that, then it will mean there will be scarcity, the fuel queues will be back, it will mean that prices will spike, and people will suffer. So we need to design, that's why I made the comment that I expect that while I accept that in the near term, the Nigerian First policy is a very good initiative, I'm saying as a policy, it needs to be properly designed and implemented carefully to ensure that people do not suffer any more than they have already done. That would be my first take on that. And I think as a policy as well, that we need to ensure that it aligns with existing policies. And this is very important because we cannot be taking, yo-yoing all over the place. So we need to look at our trade policy, we need to have the economic policies, we need to make sure that this policy aligns well with those other, the petroleum policy, which we have codified in the PIA. We have to make sure that there's complete alignment. The PIA expects a market where prices are determined by competitive forces, right? So we need to, again, look at that to see how this will impact on that. And if not, what we need to do to make sure that it works. So there are quite a few things that I think needs to be looked at. And that's why I say that pronouncements are good, but we need to see the details. We need to see the plan to implement. It's very important that we don't gloss over these things.
Yeah, really, we need to see it. The issue of waivers, where you say when you need to maybe get products, goods and services from outside the country, there would be waivers. What's your understanding of that?
I guess what that says, remember, from the little commentaries I've had from officials of government, the Nigerian First policy is primarily a public sector policy. Basically, it is for procurement that goes through the BPE, Bureau for Public Procurement, BPP. So it's about government buying stuff. So it's not necessarily, I don't see, at least yet, that it affects the private sector. So if we take it from that perspective, the issue of waivers, what they are saying is, yes, if you're going to do a ban, then of course you need to have waivers for things that we do not produce or we do not produce enough for our use. You just have to have a window that allows those things to be procured. But you and I can have a debate as to whether waivers actually work in this environment because they inject significant subjectivity into processes. So those are issues, again, that the design should address. Waivers in themselves are not bad, but how they're implemented could be problematic. And we've seen that in this climb. So I would say let's get a bunch of people involved into the room and work up a plan and share it, get all the stakeholders aligned before we roll it out. What tends to happen in this is that government just announces stuff and then we all start running around. Not much work or thinking is underpinning those pronouncements. We need to be a bit more deliberate, especially when it comes to public policy. I think we are where we approach it, loosely, and I don't think that's good enough.
I think I agree with you. A lot of details need to be put forward. Now, let's stay with the oil and gas industry. Now, I think we're back to the Naira for crude policy, which at first there was a bit of pullback with regards to that. I haven't gotten your views with regards to that because we've not spoken in a while. What are the positives now in your own thoughts? Yes, I haven't gotten your views with regards to that, because many believe that moving forward, we should continue to see a decline in the price of fuel at the pumps. That's what Nigerians are more interested in.
Yes, I think on the face of it, the Naira for crude policy is the right thing. If we had the volumes, it will strengthen the Naira. It will reduce the pressure on the dollar and whatever dollar reserve we have. And overall, I think it's a reasonable policy. However, I think the challenges are that we do not just produce enough to feed the need. So think about the numbers. We are doing 1.5, 1.7. A lot of that has been encumbered. We borrowed money against those volumes, significant. So the free unencumbered volumes are probably less than 500,000. So if you then have to dedicate that to the domestic market, where are you going to earn dollars from to service your imports, bills, and all that? So that's the real challenge that I think they are managing. So good policy, but I wish we had more volumes. It would have helped. Having said that, your next question was on how that will impact on pricing of domestic or of PMS at the pump.
Yes.
The pricing of PMS at the pump, again, it's a function of all sorts of things, right? The big ones are the cost of crude, the prevailing cost of crude at the time, the refining margins, the transportation margins, and all and all. And so it goes. So it all builds up into what you get to pay at the pump. Now, I think that if we had a Naira for crude policy that is working very well, in other words, we have the volumes to back it up, it will have impact on the end user price, which is the price at the pump. It will have some impact, not a whole lot, because I don't think that the difference really is much in terms of the exchange rate. But then it will reduce the pressure on our forex reserve. That's very key. So the pricing at the pump will depend on all of these factors that I've highlighted, and of course efficiencies, both refining and supply chain efficiencies. So what I think has been missing in all the conversation is how do we get those efficiencies up? So it requires a lot of investments, whether it's in the pipeline system. I mean, why are we trucking petrol from here to the north? It is not cost efficient. It's not. So those are things, okay, so we need a pipeline system. We need all sorts of things to make sure that we're using the most cost-effective means to move products around. That should matter at the pump price, right? So getting that conversation going, and I'm glad we have deregulated. So we've started the journey to a market where we can now start to look at the efficiencies, who is more efficient and the other. That's where competition is key. Because people have no incentive, really, to be efficient if there's no competition, if nobody is challenging them to their market share. So we need to, I think that journey has started, and my prayer and belief is that with time, we will have more entrants, more people come in, to supply the market, and there will be competition, and then the efficiencies will come in, and the end users will get a fair pricing, because that's ultimately where we need to be. And that's why I think that as the market evolves, things that are very critical is that the regulatory environment is equally evolving with it and building capacity and sufficient enough to address the needs of the market as that evolves. So those are the things that should be bothering us today. How do we get regulatory oversight and capacity up? They've done a fantastic job so far, but of course, as the market evolves, it gets more complex and it requires a lot more regulatory oversight. Do they have the capacities there? Do they even have the people, enough people to do what we require of them to do? So there are quite a few things that needs to be happening in the market. But quite frankly, I think that the journey has started, and the competitive pressures are not there yet. But I hope with time they will come to play, and ultimately the end users will enjoy the benefits of a competitive market.
Mr. Joseph Nwakwue is a partner, Zera Advisory and Consulting. Thank you so much for your patience and joining the program today. We really, really do appreciate this. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Tolu. It's been a pleasure talking to you this afternoon.
Yeah. And it was an interesting chat, I must say. Well, let's